Hi, I am the second best Argo Sirens player in the world. I nearly topped with this deck, and I believe this deck is quite a better threat in the format right now. In fact,
That's it.
yeah.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Argo here. Today we are back to talk about the YouTube famous deck that fell off in 2 weeks or 2 days, depending on where you live. This is Argo Sirens. So Argo Sirens is a deck that came out from DZ Video 7, the Trial of the Moon. I forgot. The one with Buffsaga, the one that caused us all to quit Vanguard, right? I heard you all want to quit Vanguard, right? So other than that, now Argo Sirens actually got a legacy support in set 8, if you can call it legacy. But you know what? It actually caused some decent results, to the point that my friend here, he actually almost won a WGP. He was 1 win off, and it was really sad. But the same weekend, some guy in Korea won as well. So clearly there is some secret sauce here, right? I'm not gonna pill you on this deck saying this is the best deck of all format. Buffsaga should be afraid, Blank Maya should be retrenched. No. But I think this deck is heavily slept on because most people don't read cards nowadays. But let's talk about this real quick. I think this is a really interesting deck. Again, I seem to feature all the cheap Stoicheia decks on this channel for under 3,000 yen that suddenly win tournaments for some strange reason. But I'm guessing that's just part of a personality trait now. So let's get right into it.
Alright, so to start things off, first of all, you have to run a very specific right line in this case. So basically, you must run Argo Sirens locally. Not because she's a cute girl, but because of this close effect. Argo Siren Ermia. So Ermia's skill is that when this unit rides on Argo Sirens locally specifically, you search your deck for one of the tiding orders itself. So either this one or this one, which we will cover later on itself. Okay. So Rev C, or Argo Sirens Rev C, the grade 2, has this similar effect as well, where on place on Argo Siren Ermia, you search your deck for one of the tiding orders and then into your hand.
Okay.
So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the cost is that you need to reveal specifically the grade 3 Argo Sirens in the card name from your right deck specifically.
It just needs to be a grade 3 Argo Siren?
Yeah, a grade 3 Argo Siren. So the deck is kind of future proof, kind of.
Okay.
But the more important thing is, why are we showing this right now? It's because these two are quite integral to the game plan of Argo Sirens as a whole. Okay. So before I cover the boss unit itself, we need to cover what the tiding order does itself. Okay. So without further ado, we should probably start with the tiding orders first before we go through the grade 3.
Sure.
So our tiding orders we're running Kataros Ode and Kianos Oracles. So I'll start with the grade 1 first.
How many of each are you playing?
3 copies of Kataros Ode and 3 copies of Kianos Oracles.
You're playing a 3-3 split now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will explain my thought process on why I'm playing 3 instead of the normal 4.
Sure, go ahead.
So, first of all, Kataros Ode. In order to play either one of the tiding orders, you need to play a Soul Blast 1 and your bank must be an Argo Sirens in the card name itself. Kataros Ode lets you look at the top 7 cards of your deck and let you review one card from among them. If that card is an Argo Sirens in its card name, you can call it to the Vanguard circle if it's grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, or if it's a tiding order, no grade restrictions, you can add it to your hand. Then you shuffle the deck. So, its second skill is, when it's bound by the effect of the grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Argo Sirens in its card name, you stand one of your rear guards itself. Okay. So this should probably tell you this order alone should tell you the entire win condition of Argo Sirens itself. You set the orders, you gain a bunch of advantage and effects, and then your main Vanguard will basically bind them off to do multi-attack in this case itself. So Kianos Oracles is the exact same thing. In addition to also needing Soul Blast 1 and also having a Vanguard with Argo Sirens in its card name, you can search your deck for a Tear Dragon. Yes, we are not joking. Tear Dragons, call it to the Vanguard circle, and that great less than or equal to your Vanguard, of course.
So like Inner Pulse?
Yes.
Cool.
And shuffle your deck. Its on-bound effect is, if your opponent is grade 3 or greater, you give your Vanguard the effect where at the end of the battle that it attacks, it stands itself and then it sets its drive to 1. Increases or decreases drive to 1.
Okay.
So basically you get a restand effect itself. So this should tell you the whole win condition of Argo Sirens as a whole. Okay. From that point. So without further ado, now I introduce the boss unit of the deck itself, Argo Sirens Calliopeia. So
Okay.
Argo Sirens Calliopeia has 3 effects. The continuous effect. During your turn, if you have a bound tiding order in your order zone, she gains 5,000 power. If you have 2 or more different tiding in your order zone, the whole front row gains 5,000 power instead.
For free.
Yes.
Wow, so it's a pocket curse.
Yes.
But it doesn't scale, but it's basically just a 3+5.
Yeah.
So you're playing Dragonic Kaiser of Radiant the Blood.
Yeah, to some degree.
Cool, okay.
The second effect, act. By discarding 1 card from your hand, choose a tiding order from your drop and place it to the order zone. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that both Kianos, Orcus and Katas Ode, they activate their effects not by being played, but by being placed in the order zone. So you can activate their effects immediately with Calipeia's effect. So you can set 2 orders in 1 turn, basically with Calipeia's effect itself.
Okay.
And last but not least, the main effect that allows you to activate these orders to their full potential in the first place. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, cost counter+1, choose one of your hiding orders in your order zone and bind it. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you NG blast 3 and you bind 2 instead of 1. So you need to pay CB1 ENG blast 3 to bind 2 itself.
Oh wow, okay.
So basically, by binding as you expect, Katos Ode, you can basically stand the rear guard, and then if you bump Kian's Orcus in addition, you can...
Stand the Vanguard.
Yes.
So you get 5 attacks.
Yes.
On what turn?
On turn 3, but only if you went second. If you went first, you can only bind Katos Ode because of the grade 3 restriction on these Vanguard's main effect itself. Which
So, I see. That's pretty interesting.
yeah. So overall, Argo Sirens is the main thing that makes this deck quite threatening, however, even though it doesn't sound a lot, right, is that this deck has one of the most consistent field buildings ever.
Most consistent field building.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because here's the thing, Kianos Orcus lets you search a Tear Dragon out from the gate for free. And not gonna spoil it, but some of the Tear Dragons that you can play in this deck are absolutely gonna hit some numbers that you don't expect.
Ah yes, the Maelstrom special.
Yeah. And Katas Ode gives you the early rush.
Because it
As
gives you an
well.
Argo Siren.
Yes. And some of the Argo Sirens in these decks act as support in this case because just like how their old counterparts, the Battle Sirens, operated back in old Aqua Force days,
I
where
see.
they act more like support rears, Argo Sirens took that playstyle and made it into their gimmick itself. Hence the reason why they have this dual archetyping in the first place, where they caught Tear Dragons and their Argo Sirens are the supports that push the Tear Dragons up.
That is so cool. I never understood that till now. I didn't know that till now. That is so cool. Because a lot of people are like, why does his deck have dual typing? It makes the deck really bad. But you explain it in a way that I get it now.
Okay,
I
to
get
be
it.
fair, I understand that dual archetyping decks have a weakness in this case, which is that you need to run both archetypes, so you need to balance the archetypes out. But I think Argo Sirens probably played the best balance they could possibly get so far.
Okay.
If you of course build the deck correctly.
Alright, so show us how to build the deck correctly.
Alright then. Without further ado, let's start by showing the grade 3s in this case. So our grade 3s, we're obviously running 3 copies of Argo Sirens Calliopeia in the main deck, and then of course one in the right deck. 3 copies of Kianos Orcus and the main grade 3 card from the Tear Dragon that you're gonna call mainly. 4 copies of Stunning Wave Dragon itself. So I believe we covered Kianos Orcus and Calliopeia already, so we don't need to go through them in too much detail. So we'll start with Stunning Wave itself. Stunning Wave Dragon, when placed on rear from hand or from deck, so you cannot activate his effect from drop.
Oh,
Sadly,
so you can't Elvina it.
yeah. You
Okay,
can't.
cool.
I mean, it's a grade 3, so Elvina can't apply its deflection.
Oh.
But when placed on rear from hand or deck, if you have a Vanguard with Argo Sirens, this unit gains 5,000 power until end of turn. So it's a 3 power plus 5.
Oh, it's a passive.
And then you can pay 1 counter blast or 3 energy to draw 1 card.
It's like Peregrine Boat but better. You guys remade Peregrine Boat. Oh wow. Okay.
Its second effect is that when this unit attacks once per turn, this is a soft once per turn,
Okay.
you can have this unit retire in exchange of retiring itself, gain 5,000 power until end of turn. So it turns
What do you mean
into-
by in exchange retire itself? Like, how does that work?
So basically, you let it gain power. If you do let it gain power, which is 5,000 power, you will have to retire yourself at the end of the turn. So allowing you to evade board. So you can evade Artisaria's lock.
Wow, that's quite cool. But it's it's basically a cycle draw and then a beat stick to retire.
Yeah, it allows you to gate off your energy completely. So you'll be always in near full energy cycle completely, regardless of where you go first or second. Because when you go first, you have 6, right?
Yep.
But because Calliopeia cannot use her second effect unless you fight Dayusha,
Yep. Or Daikaiser.
yeah, you will always be able to get off the energy completely. You will always have enough energy to draw 2 cards if you call 2 stunning waves. So you'll not be minusing much from your hand.
I see.
Because the biggest weakness to Argo Sirens so far was always been their hand after all. So having the card to be able to cycle off the energy and give them all that draw advantage early on that 0 in this case, makes them pretty stable overall. Not to mention, this card can hit for some nasty numbers. 23 on beat stick, and then if you add in factoring in the fact that some of the Argo Sirens have rear guard effects,
Yeah.
you're gonna have some very nasty numbers to deal with.
Cool. Let's move on then.
Alright then.
Our grade 2s
We play Argo Siren FC.
from the right deck, right?
Yeah, twin cast, 3 ball briny, 2 tight lines. I think I'm gonna just cover tight line first since he probably was covered him before, but basically with your Persona roll this turn, you can pay 1 Soul Blast and choose one of your other units and himself and that unit gain 10,000 power until end of turn.
If you Persona right this turn.
Yes, if you Persona roll.
So turn 4 it's a plus 20k.
yeah,
Insane.
but knowing that Calliopeia's effect or Kian's Gold Coast effect allows you to restand your Vanguard itself, it does make sense why you want to run a few tight lines in this case because
You can give 20k to 2 of your units and then stand them both.
yes, remember that Calliopeia will be doing 5 attacks, especially if on the Persona right turn.
And that's gonna be quite large actually.
Yeah, they will hit for nasty numbers. So Calliopeia will basically be a restanding 38k attacker, and if you have the passive on completely, she will also Thailand can hit for a nasty 35k on restand. So just these 2 alone, and that's not factoring the fact that we have yet to talk about most of the Argo Sirens. In fact, yeah, because most of them are great ones.
So let's talk about the rest of this deck quickly then.
Alright, Ball Briny Dragon. Ball Briny has a very interesting, 2 very interesting effects. He has a drop zone effect. So, on drop zone, if you play a tiding card from your hand to the other zones, that means sadly you can't cheese it out with Calliopea's effects. Sadly, you pay 1 card of blast and you call him to the rear guard circle. So from drop to rear guard circle. His second effect, when placed on rear guard circle, you can place a tiding order from your bind to the drop, and he gets 10,000 power until end of turn. Basically, not to spoil, but this is one of the ways you're going to recycle some of your tiding cards itself, because after all, you're going to run out of steam very fast if you don't run Ball Briny itself. So he exists as probably one of the strongest turn 4 enablers in the deck itself. Not only does he gain power, he also allows you to cycle back some of your...
in what case do you use this guy over the grade 3? Or do you just use them as and when? How do you choose? I think that's what a lot of people want to know.
How do you choose? You choose based on the scenarios, but most of the time in the early game, you always choose Stunning Wave first. You always will choose Stunning Wave first because Ball Briny will only get its effect off on turn 4 onwards because you'll not have any ways to bind the tiding cards unless you play stupid cards like Coughing Shooter. I don't recommend it. Please don't.
Okay, that's fair. And twin cast is 4 defense.
Yes.
Very simple.
Yeah, we're not gonna go very much.
The great ones?
Emilia from the right deck itself. If you're wondering what the rear effect is, because I forgot to cover it, is that the back row on back row rear, at the end of the battle, she boosted. If you have a Vanguard, when your other units in the same column as her stand, if you have Vanguard with Argo Sirens in the card name, so plus 1 stand this unit. So it's basically a Frog Raider.
It's Frog Raider.
Yeah. 3 copies of Katara's Ode. And then we have 4 copies of Argo Sirens Sign-On. 4 copies of Argo Sirens Synthesis. 2 copies of Argo Sirens Viasha.
What's this?
Of course, our Jewel Beast, El Prada, and of course our PGs.
So very simple, we are playing PGs, want to stay alive, yada yada, cover Vanguard, Long, Lamauto, you can, okay, Crystal Beast very simple, you use it for the 20k shield or you can burn it off for a quick soul charge 2 and a +5. Although generally speaking, you don't really want to burn off your Argo Sirens names, you can still burn off the grade 0 and grade 1 because your grade 1's Argo Siren pool is insane, okay?
I mean, to be very honest, we're not gonna revive. There is zero
Yeah, we're
revive.
not really reviving much. This Argo Siren skill is on the rear guard or guardian circle. If you have a,
I'll cover it.
if you have a,
No, let me see.
Okay.
Okay. Argo Sirens be a shift. On rear on Guardian Circle, if you have a Vanguard with Argo Sirens' card name, which you greater sadly, and you have a tiding order in your bind zone, she can gain 5,000 pounds. So she gains 5,000 shield, and then she can also gain the ability to intercept, and she can intercept from the back row.
she can intercept from the back row.
Yes, she gains intercept, and she can intercept from the back row. So she also gets cut by all those intercept.
Okay.
So she can also be switched off due to the intercept blocker's abilities itself. But overall, a very strong defensive card. You can call early on, you can call it to rush, you can call it behind your Vanguard, then intercept it off when you bind it off, the tiding eventually. It just gives you a lot of these turn advantage because Argo Sirens going first is not as strong as them going second overall. So this card exists as a way to get that loss advantage because after all you want to get that 5 attacks early as much as possible, but when you go first you can only do 4 attacks since you're not allowed to bound Tiana's oracles itself.
Alright.
Moving on, we have Argo Sirens Synthesis, the news card. The new card that was printed alongside Biasha earlier on. So this card is pretty much reverse Salgon.
Reverse Selgaon?
Yes.
How so?
When your mermaid or tear dragon stands, if you have a Vanguard with Argo Sirens' card name, put this unit to the bottom of the deck, choose one of your units, and it gets 5,000 power until end of turn.
You give a guy +5 until end of turn,
And you draw a card.
and you draw one.
Yes.
So it's like stunning wave again. It just recycles itself. And
Yeah.
draw one.
By putting yourself back to the bottom deck, so you can call it out with Katanas all day.
Oh wow! Because Katanos Ode calls from the deck,
Yeah.
so you can cycle it back.
Yes, you can cycle it
And then it
back.
goes back.
Yeah.
They can call it again.
Yeah.
That seems quite unfair. No? Okay.
It's a free net zero, but it's the reason why this deck can also end on a 8 hand size or even more. 8 card hand size anymore because you know the whole field will disappear. You call Stunning Wave, you call this, you draw 5 in total. I mean technically it's net zero, but at the same time you keep your hand, you keep your defensive after all.
Cool.
And not only that, on personal right turn, this is even more threatening. So basically one of the best combos you can do in this deck early on is you boost it with Stunning Wave, then after that if when Calliopeia attacks you, pop back this and give your Vanguard 5,000 power.
Then you can restand it.
Yeah.
Cool. Alright, let's finish it off.
Then we'll probably go off with the second best Argo Sirens in this deck itself. The best one is Synthesis early on. It's Argo Sirens Sino. So Argo Sirens Sino, this is the only other fourth we play for the Argo Sirens pool, and that's because when this unit is placed on rear circle from hand or deck again, if you have Vanguard with Argo Sirens card name, you can pay 1 card on blast, switch your deck for a tiding order, and to your head. From drop or deck actually.
From drop or deck.
If you search your deck, you shuffle your deck.
No, that's fair. So it's basically a CB1 searcher.
Yeah, it's a CB1 searcher. It's one of the best ways Argo Sirens to keep up with their consistent tempo play.
Cool.
Allowing it to just play the tidings easily, so you don't have to run so many breaks. This card is also the reason why we're also running the tidings in 3 of actually as well.
Because you can just search it out consistently.
Yeah, and you don't need to run too many breaks, as you can kind of tell the break 3 pool that we have earlier on was quite massive, and then you factor in that Kato Sode is a shieldless card as well. You're running basically 10 shieldless cards.
That's quite a lot in this economy.
Yeah. Or actually 13 considering the personal right as well. So you're running 13
Shieldless cards.
shieldless cards in the main deck itself. Sino's second effect is the one that also pumps the numbers out even more. If your Vanguard is greater or greater, and you place a tiding from your hand to the order zone this turn, she gains 5,000 power.
So she's a 13k booster.
Yeah, she's a 30k booster.
Oh, that's pretty good. Alright, let's wrap it up before it gets too long here.
Rotolis.
Our grade zeros, we have Rotolis is our starter.
Yeah.
And then simple spread. 7 crits. 4 heals, 1 OT,
There's
3
4
draw.
Yeah.
Cause
Four draws.
4 draws because this deck is piece reliant, right?
Yeah.
So we need all the pieces we can get.
Yes, that's right.
And yeah, that will wrap up the Argo Sirens deck profile.
So overall, one of the strongest budget decks I ever seen printed. I mean, this deck is really nasty when it wants to be. It hits very nasty numbers with Stunning Wave hitting 31k with a with by itself and a booster. Calliopeia hitting for 28k to 38k.
Yeah, that's quite a lot actually.
The numbers.
Do you think this deck has what it takes? I mean, considering you almost won a WGP with this.
It has what it takes. It definitely has what it takes to definitely win tournaments if it wants to. Because, I mean, if it checks triggers, number one, of course. But that aside, the deck's pressure has gotten immensely stronger as well as time goes on. And I believe further support is going to improve not just its power scaling, but its overall deck consistency that it's trying to balance after all. It's a dual archetype deck introduced alongside Palm Razors.
Yeah, we don't talk about Howl Razors here. But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for spending some time with us. I know you're really busy, so I watched you almost win that WGP personally, and I told myself I have to get you on because I really would love to talk to you about it. You're such a fun guest to have, not like the other guests on the channel who just sit here and be like, yeah guys, here's my Twitter, and then I'll just sit there and clap my hands like a trained monkey. But with you and me, we're just friends.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Also, I like mermaids. Yeah, that's why, and especially mermaids in literal uniforms, I guess.
You may need mental help. You may. I'm not sure. I can't comment on that.
I may need mental help. I'm just being a normal guy here, sadly.
Alright, bro. Alright.